let's go talk about Andor season 2 now.
Describe how it leads into
One year later, and then they're just like, there's a TIE fighter, and then Andor just have a mission. They got steal the TIE fighter, but because there's actually a good scene of like he just kind of comfort the new recruit, and it's like, oh, don't worry, everything's fine. And he just went to a TIE fighter. And that scene was fucking stupid.
I think we have to separate the scene between you had the really good scene with the recruit where Andor is like reassuring her and they're talking, and we kind of got the setup so we understand this is clearly some kind of stormtrooper base. They have this TIE fighter. We get the knowledge that he's a test pilot. The first like 5-minute scene, really good character stuff for Cassian. Then we get some of the rest of it with Cassian.
The Star Wars pathos. Yeah.
I think this opening perfectly summarized the entire season 2 for me. There's like good stuff, and then afterwards just get bad stuff, like back to back.
Yeah.
And then that fight scene was like, oh shit, Cassian cannot fly this model. Was like, oh shit.
He has to use like a lever for one hand, and he has to use like a switch for the other hand. So it's like it's two different driving, holding things. But I guess like it's like a stick shift in a way.
Did you see Ficus's video on this?
Yeah, I seen it.
I thought he had like a really good like analysis of like why this whole opening action scene doesn't work. That's why I bring it up, because he brought up issues I didn't think about. One of them is he knows a bit about mechanical stuff. He pointed out there would definitely be a manual. They have this like experimental TIE fighter and there's no manual in existence.
That was insane, because there's one thing people don't know is like this is the same time in Rebels, which apparently they only started to make like 3 years after this episode.
Why would this TIE fighter's controls be any different fundamentally from like, you'd assume this is an iteration on a prior set.
It's also weird because whenever they keep doing prequel stuff or things like that, you have to also remember that it'll eventually become the TIE fighter that we know from the original trilogy, since it's set between the third movie and the fourth movie. It seems stronger though, yeah.
He's smashing into like walls, he's smashing through steel doors, he's smashing into the mountainside, and then it's like completely fine. I guess maybe it was too expensive for the Empire to keep producing. I made this comment on the Master Ficus video, but I'm gonna say it again. It feels like somebody took a Mandalorian season 2 or 3 action scene, stapled it onto Andor here.
I mean, even the rest of like Cassian's story, which honestly, I feel like maybe going character by character might make a little bit more sense, because there isn't really that much in terms of like Cassian specifically. I mean, they all can like kind of meld together in a way, but obviously we can explore more when we talk about it. But like Cassian eventually does go to a place, and then he is looking for somebody. There's like a group of bandits, I guess.
That's the name of the person, which I believe is a character from the OT. It's just like a name drop, but it is a character from the Rebel Alliance in the OT.
So basically, this is a bunch of radioactive morons that does not understand how talking works.
Yes, let's just knock out this whole plot line with the Rebels, because this is the worst.
Yeah, so basically it ends, and then there's like a group of people there, like a group of people that hate each other. One, they're trying to get out of this place, so they're interested in Andor's ship, but they can't fly it, and they don't want to ask Andor to fly it for them because it's too small, like they can't all fit in there. And then there's like this whole conflict where they end up shooting each other, and then they end up splitting up in half or something like that, kind of like a civil war.
Okay, even if we say that this is coherent for some reason, this has nothing to do with Andor's character.
Yeah, he's just a prisoner, and he sometimes shit talks to get something to happen, but like outside of that,
the whole thing with this rebel group is they lost their leader. They're like part of a specific battalion. What was it, the Mira battalion or something?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
They used to be organized under one specific person who was like the boss, and that person died in some battle. Basically a power struggle, because they don't really have any structure to how they actually form. So you have a group of different leaders. You have a group of different people who are all trying to kind of assert themselves as the current leader.
I don't even understand how rebels work, because if you're a rebel, it's like your leader died. So let's just say that in the Empire, Thrawn died in this group, and that'll be like, okay, then who's the second highest person in power? It's like, oh, there's no one? What the fuck, man?
Let's put it this way, Unity dies, and Red is like, shit, I need a new podcast host. Let me look at the guest list for like... I'm not trying to usurp you, Unity, but, you know.
Yeah, maybe, but you're never gonna take my place. Yeah, they're just like a bunch of radioactive shitheads. It was like, hey, what's a group? And then they're just constantly arguing, like, I want to be leader, I want to be leader, I want to be leader, I want to be leader. It's like, shut the fuck up.
They all look like hillbillies, if we're gonna be honest.
The problem is, they're all morons.
I mean, people are just like, oh, this is like the only bad plot point. It's like, I don't believe you, but sure.
There's like 15 of of them, and that's also their collective IQ.
Insane, because like you would think that anyone would be like, even if you're a rebel against this, shouldn't it be like, what are you doing? So the Empire's in this planet, shouldn't you? But you guys know how to space travel at this point. You don't need a TIE fighter. And then they're like, wait, how do you get off this planet? I was like,
I also watched it today as well. That was essentially what was the problem. Is like they were stranded. Andor was just there because he had to meet Porco, and they said that they killed Porco.
But they also said that wasn't true, so they could just have been doing that because they think he's an enemy.
Right.
So they could be lying.
Before they got to do something like, oh, Andor is gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna be the leader. I'm gonna teach you guys how to be a leader and stuff. And they're like, no, they just got escape. It's like, what the fuck?
The funny part is like when they learn how to shoot the gun, and then they're like doing like a heave ho, like trying to pull the ship centimeter by centimeter so that they can aim it at the other ship.
I actively do think like the action scenes in general are just so much worse. It feels like this is kind of Disney corporate saying you need an action scene every episode.
No, I mean, I think that this action scene was like, hey, you need a monster as well, because I was like, wait,
because like that's how it resolves itself too. Because like first off, they go to the center to do rock paper scissors, essentially.
I mean, this
And
is
then-
like the way to choose a leader: rock paper scissors.
And
I'm
then
kind of surprised they have a rock paper scissors game in Star Wars universe.
so then Andor is just using that opportunity to take out the person that was watching over him. I guess there was a gun there.
Or they didn't take away his weapons.
And then just like during the time they escape, there so happens the monster are attacking them.
There's a monster attacks that causes more chaos, and then Andor uses that extra layer just to like run away and get into the ship and then fly away. So that kind of like nulled everything. There really is no resolution to it because there's this conflict. They have a lot of scenes about it. They never resolve the problem, and Andor gets away. So I don't know why he would go back.
This seems to be the plotline everybody I've talked to agrees is just the worst of the whole show in general, not even just the whole season so far.
Also, I just like also the assumption at the end was like those hippos just eat all of them, and then this is like the only plot point everyone hates. And then we got like 3 other plot points.
The Mon Mothma stuff, and then we have the stuff going on at the farm.
And also the cereal and the Dedra stuff.
Oh, right. So yeah, it's 3 more major plots.
Which is also kind of like not much. It's just Cyril's mother comes over.
Actually, the first one is actually with Ben Mendelsohn.
Daedra stuff and Cyril stuff seems to be building up to something. I think that's a slow burn.
I'm just gonna say that because when we watched episode 1 together, we literally just that scene is intercut between like Ben Mendelsohn giving a long speech that amounts to nothing. It's like Gorman spiders. Here are more Gorman spiders, and this is like more Gorman spiders. Like,
you're talking about the Krennic.
The idea is this is Daedra is being brought in on a top secret project for the Empire. And the way it's explained is literally like, this meeting never happened. All records of it are going to be wiped after you leave from here. If your superiors are not in this room, they aren't cleared to know about this. If anyone talks to anyone about these meetings, I'm going to tell the Emperor personally, which is basically like, that's a pretty good threat.
I mean, yeah, that's a good threat. Unfortunately, I don't have to intercut between that scene and a bunch of Andor hanging around. Was like, what the fuck? You can just achieve that with like a single scene without like intercut with so much.
That's why I say I think the Daedra stuff with Gorman is setting up for something.
Damn, I hope it's actually paying off, because if not, I'm gonna be like, yeah, this amounts to nothing. Yeah, just like a lot. We just meme about like Gorman. So what the fuck?
So the idea is, so Gorman has a culture built off selling fabric, outfits, stuff like this, because they have these special spiders that have special silk. So this is what their entire culture is built on, and what all of their industry is built on. And because of this, they are very wealthy. And the idea is the Emperor is interested in another resource in their planet that, in order to mine it, risks completely destabilizing the planet and destroying it, essentially.
I'm gonna be honest here, unless they say otherwise, I'm not gonna believe that this is gonna be useful, because a lot of the good setup, you don't go with, oh, that's a setup. You're just like, oh, that was interesting with a lot of good characters, and then
no,
at the end,
I think this is setting up the plot for the season. I think this is going to be the big plot for the season.
At the same time, you just don't get a lot of useful character information. It's like, okay.
What you really get out of it is that Dedra is not really into this whole idea, but Krennic is still like assuring that like we kind of have to do that.
You could spend your time better elsewhere. It was like, okay, because like we can have like a bunch of like discussions between, okay, there's still technically discussions, but like we will never care about those people again. There's a lot of time that was not well spent.
My observation is I just kind of find it funny how like just the costumes were like, some people look straight straight up looks like business suits, like in our modern day. And then they have like a tie, but like the only difference is that they don't have a collar. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, we did praise about because there's not a lot of Dedra and like Zero stuff, but we do get that really good scene of like Zero and Dedra like meet his mother.
I'm hoping it goes to more. I'm trying to remember if anything interesting with them happens in episode 3.
No, I think they just are set up as like, oh, this is your job against Zero. Yeah. You're promoted.
The problem with the Zero and Daedra stuff, which isn't really a problem, it's all set up, so it's hard to know how it pays off fully. I'm trying to remember if it's paid off. But like I said, in my rewatch, I only got up to episode 2, so
I think the thing is like when it comes to Andor season 1, you just like, oh, those you don't just go with, oh, that's just setup. It's like, oh, that's setup and character information.
The mother stuff is very important though.
Yeah, the mother stuff is like that was actually really good. I was like, oh, because like Zero was like, oh, I hate you, mom, fuck off, you're abusive. And then when he walks away the room, because like the mom is asserting power over him and just like let's talk about him as a kid. And then that drug straight up just like, fuck off, I'm in charge here. Don't you dare think that I'm a weak, pathetic person. I'm in charge, and shut up about it. And treat us some with respect. Also, yeah, the Dedra and Zero are now fucking. But yeah, it's a lot of interesting power dynamic. Dedra knows that when to act nice, and then but she could tell that when she gotta be in charge. And Zero is like, even though he wants to be controlled, you can tell that he needs her support.
As for Cyril, he seems to have like also got a promotion within the department. Was it the Department of Standards? I've heard some people complain about that. I think it's fine because I think that it would be weird for him to just suddenly shift from the Department of Standards back into the branch that he got kicked out of. Even if he saved like a up-and-coming Imperial officer, that's a hard stretch.
I think that's fine for Dedra, just like, okay, promote this guy.
He actually had a story for how he got promoted. It even involved her. Well, look at how hesitant he was about the uncle stuff in season 1. He would hate getting promoted just because of a contact. He has a scene in episode 2 where he's talking to somebody and being like, I was once just like you, but don't worry, I was put on a fuel console and I started looking into this and it didn't make sense. And I kept looking for a few months and I discovered this illegal cell of people selling Imperial goods. I thought that was a little clunky, to be honest, the way he explains it, but it's clunky in a way that I feel like works with the character.
There's only like 4 scenes when it comes to Dedra and Zero stuff. I mean, I'm not counting all the intercutting between all the Gorman spider ships. That's counted as one scene.
The actual thing mentioning the Gorman spiders was one scene, and then the rest it's talking about the planet itself and like the Gormans and the attitudes of the galaxy stuff. Where, like I said, that's all set up because I'm pretty confident at least something coming in the future is going to involve specifically the planet Gorman.
Because the other interesting thing about it was like, they're also discussing what to do with the inhabitants of the planet. So like, escort them out. Will that be feasible? Is that necessary? That kind of thing. So they are exploring the options of things like that, not just like, we need to destroy the planet. Who cares about the people?
It doesn't even feel like yeah, we're the evil guys, so we'll just kill them. It feels like, well, if we kill them, that's gonna look bad.
Yeah, it feels like what an empire should, if we think about it at the very least.
It's all like the logistics of it, which I appreciate that kind of thing. I can understand why people find it boring, and I think there's a setup, but that's why I'm worried that if the next arc is underwhelming, well, not underwhelming, but if the next 9 episodes go on and nothing happens involving the Gorman stuff paying off at all, I think that's going to be like not going to be great for the show.
Yeah, Gorman spider, and yeah, that's all the Dedra Zero stuff. So let's talk about do you guys want to go with the bit stuff or the Mon Mothma stuff?
We should do Vix last. That's what the internet is talking about last.
Okay, Mon Mothma stuff is mostly great.
So like her daughter is getting married.
Yeah, it's like a lot of like political stuff. It's like, oh, I'm nice. At the same time, it's like now I'm getting favors, and like there's a lot of good stuff when it comes to characters. Like, oh, it's clear that she's struggling between like, I don't want my daughter to get married, but at the same time I have to secure funds.
Also, there's the struggle where you clearly can tell she doesn't like this custom in their culture, and she doesn't like the way their culture marries, and you can kind of tell why, because she is married to Parrot, and he's kind of not the greatest spouse.
And also she's struggling to be a mom because all she did is like she's just tried to like fund the rebellion, but at the same time it's like in order to do it, so she has to sell everything about her.
Not only that, but then also she has to deal with like actually being a senator and all the time commitment there and everything. She's being pulled into like multiple different. That's the impression I got in the first season. It's not just that she's like funding the rebellion, but then it's also like the time commitment. She's like the workaholic mom.
Yeah, I was like, those are great stuff. And now just like go expand more. And then we got a lot of like good speeches, like about the culture, what we do, and then just got like a lot of like reflection. I was like, even like Dennis Skarsgård character Luthen was like, that's a life I wish I had.
The funny thing was like this was the behind the scenes thing, but like he's like, I'm not having that monologue kind of thing again for season 2. I can't do that again. So.
He's always the guy who's like in the shadows, and now just like and then you just see a lively event that feel happy. I was like, I can't have that again. I could never have a life like this.
Luthen is basically the grease for the axles of the rebellion. He is the thing that keeps everything turning, everything kind of moving. With Mon Mothma, the big plot line is you have the wedding and like her dealing with the personal stuff, but then you also have the rebellion business and the other personal stuff with Tay, I think.
Tay.
The name of the guy? Yeah, this guy, Tay, who she last season had brought in kind of to help her like deal with some financial issues and stuff with hiding the money she's funneling to the rebellion. And his whole thing with the conflict involved in him this season turns out I remember they explain him as somebody with like a more radical political thought. The way I put it is he's a not in my backyard type. He was all for the rebellion and helping fund it, but then it like got rid of a lot of his business prospects.
What was I supposed to say? But like, I think my problem with this plotline is like there's a lot of talking in the open. I was like, I think there's some conversation you just do it like indoors.
They do a lot of talking in some open areas, but the problem is it looks more suspicious if you go and duck into a random room or hallway every time you have to have a secret conversation, especially in an area as crowded as this palace.
I mean,
and everybody is talking, so like it'll filter out.
The way they talk a lot of time with Tav and her, especially, it is very, but also with Luthen. There's a lot of layering of the dialogue that I really like with Luthen and Mon Mothma.
I think you can still have like deals. It's like, I just want to go to the toilet, or just I have a headache. Those are still like valid things. It's like someone was like, I'm not sure, because like at the same time was like, because I remember season 1, there's a lot of conversations that are just indoors because like there's potential spies and stuff.
That's one of those issues that's like difficult to really solve, though. I guess you can assume that Mon Mothma's staff here, because this is in Chandril, this isn't on Coruscant, so you can assume that a lot more like loyalists, her and her family, are here versus in Coruscant.
I'm gonna be honest, I really hate the excuse like, we just gotta wait until like more information, because that's just you admitting that they don't like explain it well enough right now when it comes to character. But yeah, I'm willing, because like there's a lot of good stuff here, so I just like for this one I would just wait for the future. It's gonna be a 1 year time skip.
We also talk about Luthen. He was trying to ensure like Kolma's silence, and like he was thinking about getting him killed.
Basically, Luthen's like, we have this like loose end right now that's like a really big loose end that we need to deal with, especially because he's talking about how he has these doubts and he's lost this business because of the rebellion. We need to deal with that. He knows stuff that can fuck us both. If he goes down, the entire network he built is gone.
I think that my other thing is just like there's a lot of dancing for the note. It's like, okay, dude, I think you have more things to deal with instead of just dancing.
I think it's fine to include. On the other hand, I felt like did it feel a bit indulgent? Yeah.
It's like Zack Snyder is like walking. It's like, yeah, walking is not a problem. It's like there's way too much padding here.
I feel like the most egregious padding is actually with the rebels through the thing though than Mon Mothma, because a lot of the dancing scenes you also get a lot of like a visual storytelling with Mon Mothma.
Every time you feel like she's about to cry or something.
Yeah, just like alcohol, just like this. So it's because I did a short film. Because currently I'm editing it, so I have a scene like this, like similar. So I have a first time experience in that department. But even I was like, we can't show too much because we can't drag it too long, because you just gonna cover a lot of like other information in the film. Yeah, I did film like a lot. I literally told my actor to just dance a lot while drunk. But during the editing stage, we are like, don't do it too long, because everyone will just get the idea already.
I think that leads us to the farm.
Let's get it over with. I'll literally just just call this Rebel Moon, and just like the ship just landed today, and they want to find this hot woman who used to have history with that evil people who like break her down, and then there's a romance between like this farm guy and the farm girl, and the entire conflict, and they have to leave the place because of a rape attempt.
Well, no, they were already leaving.
They were trying to leave because the Empire was hanging around too long, and they'll find that they're undocumented.
This is the crew from the ending of Andor season 1. Outside of Andor himself, this is everyone who like bailed from that planet. I think they picked up the farm girl.
But yeah, that's it. Yeah, those are the connections. I was like, yeah, that seems awfully like a Rebel Moon. But
I think this is one of the more solid plot lines actually. But I also think there's a lot less plot. There's a bit more character stuff in that you see with this plot with this point, and this is gonna be the last point I think we'll be talking about anyway. But with this one, there's a lot more going on with like the logistics again. They're hiding out on what's clearly an agricultural world. They're also constantly checking in with other people about like specific ongoing audits of the planet because obviously they're all on the run.
What did Empire want again? I fucking didn't remember. They're in this planet because, and then there's
it is pretty funny because it straight up is like down to that particular plot line. But like the thing that's been causing online to talk a lot, there's this guy. He takes a gander at Bix. I have a husband. It's not here though, is he?
I'm gonna be honest here. When this guy walked in the frame, the first thing I said is he's gonna rape her. I was like, this is like the most obvious shit ever.
I get the people going like, I don't think SA belongs in Star Wars, even though SA is.
There's so many examples of it in Star Wars, like straight up like Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, that's gonna be like.
I think we have to just do the quick, like broad, like, okay, do you guys think that this should not exist in Star Wars? And then I've got my own thoughts about like what it is in the story itself.
I think it's a dumb take personally because, like, first off, the argument being that Vader would not allow SA in his order is like fucking dumb as hell. I think
it's not about whether or not he allows it. It's gonna happen.
And then also like even that is like they are the Empire. The Empire was based on Nazis. So there's that. But even if you ignore that part, the whole concept is that the Imperial guy feels like he is superior to the person who is unregistered for the planet. So it's like he's taking advantage of her with some level of power. Yes, he could deport her. He's still taking advantage of somebody he sees inferior.
This type of stuff happens in non-evil power structures.
Now, I don't know about like Tony Gilroy, like they explaining like it's like everybody's a product of rape. It's like
fuck off.
Like,
so my view on that is he worded that very poorly, but the idea is like every nation is going to have this type of issue. Like the U.S., we had it in Nam. There are like records of that type of stuff happening in Nam.
Right.
Tony Gilroy just cringed at when it comes to explaining that. I was like, fuck you. He's like, can you just explain it better? But I'm gonna be honest, for me, it's like this is way too black and white for me to take seriously. It was like when I just walked in, I was like, this guy's gonna rape her.
Yeah, he's gonna write her an essay.
Yeah, because I was like, you like write her an essay. I was like, that literally tells me nothing. I was like, I mean, yeah, she's gotta be like scared. I was like, dude, if a fucking evil Nazi just walk into your home and then fight it, I would be scared as well.
The other soldier, when he heard about, he actually does seem like actually affected by it. It's not like this isn't like a normal thing in the Empire. That's the other thing. This isn't like institutionalized. This is a bad person using a position of power. This is a Harvey Weinstein. This isn't like
and the other thing, I just like there's no like lack of nuance for me. It's like, okay, what does I learn about Empire? It's like this is an evil person. It was
I mean, I guess like the thing though is like not every Empire person we've seen is exactly this way. I mean, but some people do abuse their power, and I don't think it's a bad thing to show, especially when Andor is tackling like a lot more deep, darker themes in general. So it's like I don't think this was a crazy thing for them to include.
And I think this is also trying to set up another thing to kind of trigger Bix and like cause problems for her with her stuff. And I'm hoping we see more exploring that in the future arc with like how this actually like affects her character and how she deals with it.
For me, I was like, I think you could have done that with just a season 1 finale, but you don't need to add this one on top of it.
I feel like it could be useful, but I feel like we needed more time with Bix herself.
I think the problem is like there's like a 1 year time jump, but at the same time, it was like they just have to make her better, and then it's like, hey, here's essay.
She's not better; she's just able to function.
But yeah, for me, I was like, well, I wish they explored better. I mean, because here's the thing, I think there's like some good stuff with like, oh, how they got evade the Empire, how they're planning to leave and stuff, and apparently one person to portray them. It's like, oh, that's interesting.
My problem is like I think this needed a little bit more time. I think because
It
of how
more
many
build-up.
plot lines are going on along with this is like, because like every section is like roughly like 10 minutes for each individual plot line, which makes the full story. So when you're doing something like that, you're not putting a lot of emphasis on what is going to happen or what will happen to Bix and all that stuff. So it feels like very restricted, and then they kill the guy, and then she'll probably have PTSD in future episodes. Then again, I don't know about this whole time jump thing per section.
I hope that's wrong.
Every 3-episode block has the same director and writer, but they're all like different writers for each of the blocks. So that kind of tracks if they were to like, oh, you could just focus on your story for the 1 year, and then the next year this group will work on it. The next year this group will work on it. So, but then it's like, honestly, at that point, I feel like you should probably put it towards the beginning, like the first episode, and then like use 2 and 3 to kind of explore the aftermath with Bix. But there's that.
But yeah, Cassian kind of flies in at the end of the farm plot line to save everybody.
And just like shoot everyone. I was like, so
I kind of hate this.
Just in time as well.
What I hate is the variable levels of skill he has piloting this ship. It's like 1 second he's stuck in the middle of nowhere and has to call back to the antique shop to get an idea of where to go. And then like the next second,
360 no scope.
He was already a really good pilot. I get that, but you can't then lean on his inability to pilot the ship at the same time.
Because that bit took like 5 minutes in the first episode.
Yeah, and this is another one of those action scenes I just thought was really bad, because you also had the guy running in a waist-high field with no cover, getting shot at, and nobody hits him.
And then I was like, okay, fun, fuck off. And then you just realize, like, what's the point of like that he got trapped into that place? It's like, oh, it's just to delay him for 2 days.
Yeah. They needed to separate him from Bix to get the other thing.
To be honest, I think it would be more interesting if Andor's on that planet. He's got story with her.
And Andor, they needed Andor to have the special TIE fighter. I think that's the idea there.
I mean, you can just like land it as just here. I'm gonna hide this thing on this planet. It's like in like some cave, and then it's like the conflict is like now it's like shit. I just have this thing hide there, and so we gotta like cover it up together.
It would be really hard to hide it on this planet. I have family within like Kansas, Nebraska, kind of regional with all these like cornfields and like all these flatlands. It'd probably be really hard to like long term hide a ship in this field. For the same reason, it would be really easy to shoot somebody running away. Funny enough, even off the weed.
And then the gang they leave on the TIE Avenger.
I was like, oh, nice, cool, fun. So that's what it's for.
That's basically the 3 episodes altogether.
Yeah, I think overall it's a mixed bag for me. It was like there's some good stuff, at the same time it's like, oh.
I actually don't mind the bulk releases, because like if it is a weekly thing, I feel like there isn't that much material to cut off. Like if we finished episode 1 and then we're talking about episode 1, all we can really talk about is that whole Andor rebel shit was like really dumb. And I guess there's some cool dialogue scenes with Mon Mothma, but it's very clear that they were meant to seen in back to back.
So with the Andor rebel scene, that's the big thing. The only reason that the rebels feels like exist is just to delay Andor so that he's not over here with these guys.
At that time, you could just write something better there.
Yeah, it's like if the guys actually do become better rebels because of what Andor says or something like that. But like no, they continue their squabbles. They don't improve. They get attacked by a monster. They try to go for leadership with rock paper scissors, and he leaves. Like unless he goes back, I don't know why he would do that.
What if we get to the 4th episode and it opens with him having brought everyone to their camp?
Oh god, I can't.
You're the only people I trust to keep my family safe.
Look, I hate those rebels so much.
Rebel scum.
Those ones in particular are rebel scum.
Any final thoughts, Henry?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. I hope that's always just some aspect of like not filler. The Mon Mothma and Dadra stuff was like, oh, those are good, and then there's like Andor stuff was like, oh, bit stuff, it could be better. And then yeah, that's my take.
I didn't watch Andor when it first came out, mainly because like a lot of people were talking about it at the time. I knew it was going to end at season 2, so it's like I've always been like, hopefully season 2 is good, so then I can watch it all.
I wait for the whole season generally. I usually don't watch stuff episodically like this.
For me, I love watching it like weekly, like daily, because I never like to binge stuff.
For me, it depends on the product. Some days I like that, and some days I prefer the binge.
Well, there's advantages to both, obviously. That's,
yeah.
I think this the injection of like, okay, 3 episodes. I think it's a nice middle ground. I think you still get more advantage from just episode by episode weekly because it's talked about more.
Otherwise, we would not have the essay conversation. conversations in Star Wars.
I can't believe that's even the conversation. It was like, have you guys seen Return of the Jedi?
I really don't know how like these year split things are gonna happen because the Krennic story is like kind of important. So like unless like it takes them 4 years to do this entire plan, which I guess is kind of fair because you are talking about mining an entire planet.
They have a line saying that the drilling equipment would be able to be deployed within a few months.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Well, no, that they're just talking about the drilling equipment. So they still
okay.
presumably like once we are able to deploy it, we can deploy it within a few months.
If they can dispatch the civilians from the planet, relocate them, anything like that.
Yeah, hopefully, because like I think the worst thing about the season 1 is just like how to transition between the arcs.
There's a lot of time skips that I didn't notice originally.
It's a bit jarring.
Yeah, sometimes.
Because like they're all going
prison,
to the
I don't really know how long he's in there.
Yeah, because I remember it was like, oh, there's a time period that was like, oh, how do you get arrested? It was like, no, he just wandered around this resort place, and the Empire was like, I'm gonna arrest you.
His arrest is also just kind of clunky the way they do.
Well, that just happened.
Yeah, and then there's that after he escaped, and there's like he just swam to an island. There's 2 guys just fishing there, and they're like, oh shit, I'm gonna bring you guys home. Lol. I was like, oh, that was easy.